What happens when the version of you that got you to this point suddenly isn't enough to get you to where you want to go next? If you're a high performer who's ever wondered why the things that once made you successful don't seem to be working anymore, then this conversation is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious. Motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
We call it like the triangle of power almost, where when you got to hit the person, the leader, and their team and their business, you can move mountains, you can move boulders, as you were talking about, in like really fabulous ways.
It was really about getting into organizations, making change quickly, working with people that really wanted the help and needed the help, and the people aspect of it. I mean, we're called forthright people, right? Really gets down to that granular level of if we can work with individuals at that level to make them, like Ann said, better leaders and therefore better for their teams and better for their organization. That's where both of our passion comes out.
You have a grounding of authenticity from which then you can build from. And that becomes your competitive advantage because, listen, I mean, we are who we are.
This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. And today I'm joined by Candido and April Martini, co-founders of Forthright People and authors of The Power of Your Personal Brand, a playbook for struggling little managers who want to do big things. Their work is really about helping people understand who they are and how they've been showing up and how to lead from that place without trying to become somebody else. And I've got to tell you, before we even officially started, we were talking about Toronto, WKRP in Cincinnati, for those old heads like myself. And somehow we ended up in a whole conversation about people butchering our names. Apparently even April, like the month, and Martini, like the drink, aren't, as foolproof as you might think. So yeah, I knew pretty quickly that this was going to be a fun conversation. It certainly was. What really stayed with me though was this idea that growth doesn't require abandoning who you are. Sometimes it requires understanding yourself well enough to know what needs to stay and what needs to adjust. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with April and Ann. Enjoy. Hey, April, Ann, how are you?
We're good. How are you?
Fantastic, man. Well, thanks for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's great that you can do this, man.
Happy to be here.
Yes, we spend much time on this podcast and encourage individuals to live their best audacious lives. And that really is the goal. And, we oftentimes use an analogy of a pathway because life very much is like you're on this path and, on that journey, you'll have your own set of obstacles, your own set of pitfalls, what have you. And those will be good stuff too. So it's all bad, but there's these things that we have to get through. And I use the analogy of this boulder, right? Like there's a boulder in front of us and it's up and coming us to get up, over, around, or through, because on the other side is where our greatness lies. And that's really what the encouragement of the audacious lifestyle is all about. The work that you do with branding, I think, is really, really important because it ties in nicely to audacity and specifically into an authenticity and being who we are meant to be. It's still keeping with that path is really easy. That path analogy is really easy to kind of look to the left and the right and see what other people are doing, going, "Hey, I want to do that." Right. And the problem with that is it's destined for them. And not that we can't take elements or aspects and refine and tweak. Like that's all, I think that's part of life. But to want to do that specifically when it's not meant for us, and what we're also doing is we're missing what's in front of us. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. And so I say all that to say welcome. Well, let's get into a healthy, fruitful conversation about the work that you do and perhaps to start. And then you both work together and it's I'll get the name right. Fourth name of the company is?
Forthright People.
Forthright, that's what I thought. I heard Fourth People, but no, it's Forthright People is the name of your branding company. You started during the pandemic, as you just shared with me, and you've been going strong since. And so maybe as a starting point, either or jump in, let me know, talk about what the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. And honestly, Ollie, you don't actually have to ask us another question because everything you just said in the beginning is like a jumping off point for everything that we do. And a lot of the metaphors we use to talk about personal branding, the necessity of personal branding, how it puts you on your path to your big thing. So all the stuff I know we're going to get into, but the question you asked is about forthright people and what we do. So we are a leadership performance company, and we build leaders from the inside out, and we do it from the leader themselves, which is what a lot of this book and our course on Udemy is based off of. We also focus on their team, and so really building that an organizational development piece that's going to really provide a team that's going to be able to be highly functioning and successful, and then as well as their business. So think about like strategic action planning, think about go-to-market strategies, all those essential pieces that are necessary to grow business and meet your business goals. So we call it like the triangle of power almost, where when you got to hit the person, the leader, and their team and their business, you can move mountains, you can move boulders, as you were talking about, in like really fabulous ways.
Mm-hmm. When did you realize, and maybe April, you can jump in, when did you realize, this was an itch you had to scratch, so to speak?
Yeah, so we come from a combined 45 plus years of experience, me on the agency side of the world and Ann at Procter and Gamble for 20 years. And so when we say marketing and branding is in our DNA, it absolutely is in our DNA. But both of us reached points close together where we wanted to build our own thing. And one of the things we aligned to early on was we both worked on massive brands over our careers, right? Launch new products, Anne coming from Procter worked on Tide. I worked on a bunch of Fortune 100 companies. And what we decided ultimately was that we wanted to focus more on small to mid-sized companies and then the individuals within, to Anne's point about leadership, right? And then it starts with the individual. And so when we joined forces together and we were really looking at what would be most meaningful for this next phase of both of our careers, it was really about getting into organizations, making change quickly, working with people that really wanted the help and needed the help, and the people aspect of it, I mean, we're called forthright people, right? Really gets down to that granular level of if we can work with individuals at that level to make them, like Ann said, better leaders and therefore better for their teams and better for their organization. That's where both of our passion comes out. And so we said, well, we had fun bringing products to market, but that's not going to do it anymore. For me, it was, I really like doing the work, but I'm not sure that's going to do it for me anymore. And so we really landed in this place of, let's help people be better for themselves, their organizations, and their businesses. And that's really become our passion. So there you go.
I like that. I like that, the idea of helping people become better. Of course, that doesn't come without work, right? And some introspection and looking to who you are, and some honesty too, right? Like I'm not, if I don't think nothing's wrong with me, I have no reason to talk to April around about anything because I'm good, right? So I need to look at myself first as a starting point and go, okay, all right, Audley, let's kind of do some evaluation here. I guess that conversation to, I was going to use the word buy-in. I'm not sure if that's the most appropriate one, but that buy-in to understand that some shifts need to be made. Is that difficult or hard, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it tends to be very difficult because when we're talking to these people, I mean, these people are already high performers.
Sure.
Right. They've gotten to a level of success and things have been working and they're, grinding away and the future looks bright. Then all of a sudden something changes. And where we found something generally changes, where they start to have to get that new buy-in, is when they become a leader or a manager and they were a doer before. So there's that transition part, and it's generally in the middle manager kind of time frame where what got you here is not getting you there. Expectations shift a lot of times without us even knowing. And that's the thing that's really, really hard, where we're like, yeah, we are cool. We've achieved a level of success, and all of a sudden it's like, why isn't that working anymore? And then it starts to generate feelings of like extreme fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of like just anxiety about like, am I really good enough? Can I really get to the next level? How come people aren't responding to me the same way? And we call it, the soft skills are really the new hard skills, because it's almost always in the soft skill element at that point. People at that level are expecting you to show leadership in a different level. They're expecting you to be a manager of people or a manager of projects, and being able to be proactive. And those are sometimes a lot of things that we didn't do before, right? And so what we're really encouraging people to do is
or didn't need to do either,
or
right?
didn't need to do before.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because you were given a little task, you were told what to do, you could do those tasks.
Yep.
And it was really all about just how well you perform those tasks, right? Now it's about how well do I get, how well do I really inspire a team? How well do I actually lead a team? How well do I get that team to the next level or to deliver a program or a project? That's a totally different set of skills. And instead of a lot of people teaching us those skills at that moment in time, they just kind of expect us to know them. So we recognize that moment. We totally have seen it in ourselves. We've seen it in our colleagues. We've seen it in the people we coach now. We've seen it in our clients, people that they have in their organizations. And it's a very real thing. And so that's what we want to target, so that they take a step back and say, okay, something different is going on here. It's not, just about me, but it is about me becoming more aware of my personal brand and understanding if that's going to get me to where I need to go, or do I need to hone in on something, and do I need to adjust the way that I'm showing up in order to get to that next level. That next big thing is what we call it.
The next big thing.
The next big thing.
I like that. I like the way that sounds. I kind of want to go back because and go back and acknowledge something really important here, because both of you really have pivoted into something brand new here. So you're working in corporate, and you're like, hey, that in itself is audacious. When we talk about that act of coming out of your comfort zone and stretching. Was it something you were forced to? Was it by design? I heard you, April, when you said, this no longer is cutting it for us. You want to do something different. I'm just sort of curious how you guys kind of came together to make it work.
Yeah, so we say we came together by the however many degrees, 5 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? Oftentimes it is who you know.
Okay.
And I always give the quick aside and anecdote, and then I'll answer your question directly. But I had started my own company, left the agency world, thought it was going to take me a couple of years to build what I wanted. And within a year, I was there and I was lonely. I felt like I was calling all the shots. I was doing great work, but I wasn't managing people, interacting with people, and wasn't growing, quite frankly.
Okay.
So I put an ask out to people and said, I don't know what I'm looking for, but just introduce me to people. And so on the other side, Anne was kind of doing the same, meeting people, had also left Procter, had been gone for about a year. So we were in a similar stage and phase. And I think she more directly knew that she wanted a partner and she wanted to build something. And I just was kind of like, this isn't going to get me to the next phase. So what am I doing? I had said, and I will say this a million times, people have heard me say it, that I did not want to do Procter & Gamble business anymore. I'm the first to say that I cut my teeth. I got my pedigree. I learned a ton from that company. But to my previous point about bringing products to market and just, I don't like to be told what to do. They're a company that knows what they're doing. And I didn't want to do that. So a friend of a friend said, you got to meet Anne. By the way, she worked at Procter for 20 years. And I said, are you kidding me? And she said, oh, no. You said you would take any meeting. So that is how we met. Fast forward, we spent 3 hours talking. I have met many, many Procter & Gamble people through Anne that I adore. So I always offer that caveat. And we have spent 3 hours every week since, talking all the things about our business, our personal, all of that. And that's what really has led us to today. So we are very aligned on who we are as people, but also the fact that we want to continue to grow and be better and do new things. And a big part of that for us and where we landed was we've done a lot of things individually, professionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot today about how we want to build people to be better for teams and all of that. For us, it's more about helping other people, their teams and their company do better. And so while we can both do the work, we're practitioners of the work, all of that, we made the conscious decision to shed a lot of that doing so that we could really spend this time intentionally. And that's where we repositioned the company to say, it's really about all of them. Right. And
Right.
Anne said it's usually the high performers. And you said, you have to do some introspection on your own for sure.
Yeah.
But if you're ready for the work, that's really where we shine, is being there to support and cultivate and help people really identify who they are and use that fully to their advantage.
And again, that in itself is another audacious act of looking in the introspection and really questioning who you are. Thanks for sharing. It kind of feels like when you guys met, you're looking in the mirror and you guys are sort of mirroring each other in terms of wording out what you wanted. Is that how it felt there for you, April?
As much as I don't want to admit that, I do have to admit that I left and I was like, dang, I was proven wrong. And I do not like to be in that seat. So
That's funny. That's funny. Now, one of the things that I saw in your materials that you refer to the personal brand as a leader's advantage or a competitive advantage, if you will. What does that look like in sort of practical terms? Like, what do I actually see when you say that? What is that? What do I see? Or what am I seeing?
Yeah, so a lot of times, especially when you get into those moments where things just aren't going the way that you want them to go, you will go to a coach, a mentor, a colleague, and undoubtedly that person, very intentionally and well-meaning, will be like, "Oh, you know, so and so over there, you should act like so and so. So and so's better in the meetings than you are. They're more collaborative. They understand how to manage the businesses." Or, you know, if it's not somebody even in your own like little ecosystem, it's like, well, who do you aspire to be? You know, and they give you like these profiles of people that are are them, right? And so what we start to think about is like, oh, well, then there's something wrong with me, right? So I
Right.
need to
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
in order to be like them.
All right.
And I know you know where I'm going with this, Ollie. Like, what happens when we try to change ourselves to be like somebody else? It never goes well, right?
No.
Right?
So one of the things we talk about personal brand, one of the things that comes loud and clear is identity. What is your
Yes.
identity? Who the
Yes.
heck are you?
Yes, exactly. Because what that does is you start then to build from the inside out. You have a grounding, you said the word authenticity. You have a grounding of authenticity from which then you can build from. And that becomes your competitive advantage because listen, I mean, we are who we are.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll go take strength finders and Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and we'll try to profile who we are and try to identify our strengths and weaknesses. But you know, what me and April believe, and this is the foundation of this book, is that your characteristics with a capital C are who you are. They're your attributes, they're your traits, they're your values, they're your
Yeah.
points of views, there's your experiences, and that makes you unique. Why wouldn't you want to leverage that in order to be able to pursue what your big thing is? Why to be like somebody else and don what we call a persona,
That's
which
right. That's right.
always breaks down inconsistency when you try to be that somebody that you're not. You
Yeah.
can only keep that up. You can only white knuckle it for
Oh,
so
oh,
long
goodness.
before it all falls apart, right?
So true. And I'm gonna attempt to answer your question why we do that. And I think why we do that is because we think we're not enough. We think who we
Exactly.
are
Yes.
is lacking. And the only reason why we're thinking that is because we're looking at other people comparing what they're doing and we're going, oh, I don't have that. I guess I'm not good enough. All right, let me do this instead. And we move further and further from who we are. Tell you a quick story. So like, off the top, we were talking about names, right? So my name Audley is actually my father's name. Um, and so growing up and my mom's 83 and to this day, she still calls me Junior, right? I'm Junior and I'll never ever change. That's my, I was Junior growing up. And I remember I was like 18, 19, 20 around that era. And I remember making this declaration. I am not a junior anymore. My name is
Mhm.
Audley. Call me
Love it.
Audley, right? And I made that
Mhm.
declaration. But I mean, I could have stopped there, but I kept going, I don't know why. I don't know where this came from, but I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to change my name, this gives me an opportunity to be someone else. I don't
Mhm.
have to. Yes, my name was Junior, but I don't have to be Junior. I'm going to be Audley and be. I don't know who Audley was. I don't know who Junior was, right? And I remember going through this process of, and hi, my name is Audley, and people treating me like Junior because that's who they knew. And
Mhm.
it frustrated me beyond belief. I was so frustrated that I wasn't being, but that's not who I am. It doesn't matter what we call ourselves. It doesn't matter what disguise, what mask we put on. We are who we are. And I remember going through that learning exercise going, oh, I guess I am Junior. Okay, cool. And move on with life, right? But so many of us get caught in that trap. We want to be something we're not.
Yeah, I mean, when we decided to write this book, we did our own homework
Mhm.
and just building what you just said, we read, I think, 23 different books that were supposedly personal brand
Okay.
books, right? And half of them fell in the camp of how you would build a product, right? And Anne just said it. We're already here. So to try to say we're going to take a step back and start over, kind of like what you just said, right? Not possible. We're already a person. We already have experiences. We've already been shaped into who we are right now.
Yeah.
On the other side, the other half of the books were based on personas. So they would like fast track through, this is your personal brand, blah, 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 like, you know, a couple paragraphs. And then it was like, so then when you're on Instagram, you should pick out someone, like we were saying before, that you want to be like and mirror them, or just pick some characteristics and make it up as you go along, right? And so we knew we had something before that exercise, but that was just a real moment of clarity for us. And your story sparked that in my head of saying, okay, what else is out there on this topic?
Right.
And who's really helping people figure it out? There wasn't anybody. And so that's what this book is really meant to do. And like Anne said, identifying your characteristics. And we say those are neither good nor bad. They are who you are at your core, and they don't change. You can't change them typically.
We haven't said, give us the title of the book just for our listeners. I know we've referred to it. Give us the title of the book here.
Yes. The Power of Your Personal Brand, a playbook for struggling middle managers who want to do big things.
I like it. Was writing the book the goal going into this, or how did that develop, or where did that come from?
The book is a compilation of everything that we have experienced, coached, taught. I mean, for years. I mean, if you want to go back to when we were struggling middle managers and we went through those experiences, we share a lot of those stories, which a lot of authors won't, right? They kind of give you the generalizations of Mark, who, they just kind of like go off on some sort of general story tangent of Mark wants to be a so-and-so, and they just kind of hypothetically. Yeah. So we don't do that. We use our personal examples. We use examples from people we coached, names changed to protect them. But we give you the real stories. And so we know in that people are going to see themselves in that.
Sure.
And we were really intentional by using the word struggling too. And struggling doesn't need to mean that you're like, lowest of low. And, a lot of people don't want to admit that they're struggling, but really it's like, that is the point in time when you can do something about it. When you actually admit to yourself, hey, I'm struggling here. Something is different. Something's not quite right. I'm getting feedback or not that I don't really understand or I can't process. Things have stalled. I mean, it is a struggle, and it's okay. Even in this world that we've started to basically like make everything seem okay. It doesn't matter. Everything that's a struggle is meant to be flipped around, but even in that kind of world, you can admit that you are struggling, and it's not like something that's a failure. And that's what we really want people to understand, that it's not a failure. It is a moment in time. Every single high achiever goes through this. Every single one. We have not met somebody who has gone on and been successful who did not go through this moment and could say, yeah, I was like super struggling. And so that's what we want to kind of like normalize that a little bit, that we can talk about it and people can admit, yeah, this, I need this. I need this.
Well,
this time.
I think it's amazing. I actually was going to highlight the fact that you use the word struggling because it's owning that, hey, it wasn't a perfect, clear slate, and the road was fantastic. I had my bumps and I had my bruises. Something that oftentimes you'll see in organizations is an individual is working in job A, and they're exceptional at it. They do a fabulous job, and they get a promotion into job B, which is a leadership role. It's entirely different from job A. They've never done job B, right? But because they were proficient and they excelled, well, it only makes sense that you become a manager because you get a job. Well, no, that's not the right logic. I'm not saying they can't do it. I want to say it's not possible. But if the logic for being a manager because you did another job really well, there's some holes in that. So now this person already is at a disadvantage, right? And maybe it's the middle manager position. Let's use that as an example. So they promoted a middle manager because they did job A well, and now they're at a disadvantage because they're learning on the job. And while you're learning on the job, you're going to make some mistakes along the way. You're going to make some bumps along the way. I've been in leadership roles, and I think back, oh my gosh, that time I did this, I could have, like, you reflect on what you did yourself. And it's where I sort of feel bad for, but I think in my own experiences is the people I negatively impacted because I didn't know better, right? It wasn't done intentionally.
Yes.
It wasn't done. I just didn't know better. And so the lot when we talk about struggling, the offshoots that come from that, right? But yeah, I think about that again as I'm talking now. But yeah, there's one guy really messed up on it. I wish I did, but I can't do nothing about it obviously now. But I can make amends to sort of move forward and do better, which is what you guys encourage people to do, is be better.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't really subscribe to the whole, well, I had a tough road, so everyone else should have it just as bad as I did, right? Like,
that I gotta tell you, I hated that. Like,
I mean, yes, we have to work hard. Yes, we have to put in the work, right?
Right.
We're not going to, the name of our company is Forthright People. Listen, we're going to give it to you straight, right? We've already said this is work. This is work on yourself. And then to your point, it's work to benefit others along the way, right? But when we sat down to write this book, and a lot of the reason we were so vulnerable and transparent with our conversations is to help people understand that they're not alone, and to shed light on the fact that this is something that's broken across organizations. I mean, I was just with a client this morning. He is CEO level, and we had an entire conversation about the middle manager tier of people and what wasn't happening, right? And in the agency world where I grew up, it was exactly what you said. It was like, this person is an excellent designer, top performer. They do everything right, best creative ideas, whatever. So let's promote them to a manager of people and give them no tools. And do nothing to help them. And then look around and scratch our heads when they don't do well and then blame them. Right. So that's what this book is really set to focus on. And to your point about the word struggling, and we live in a world where it's like, oh, put the shininess on it, make it, make it all good, make it all positive. And Ann and I were really intentional that no, we're going to call out the word struggling, and then we're going to contextualize, like she said. It's not like I'm losing my job, the sky is falling, whatever, but it's a struggle.
Sure.
And you have to be willing to identify that and then do the work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The mantle that you're about to take up, there is some challenge with it. Yeah. And it's not going to be an easy road. And I think if that is the starting point, is the message moving forward, then it's not going to make things go away. It's just still going to happen. But at least people are better equipped to be, and really what you want to do is set them up for success, right? And so that's what I see it. Curious about patterns. If maybe you can identify patterns that you'd see or notice rather in leaders who were, say, stuck versus ones that were, thriving and moving forward.
Yeah, this is a really, really awesome question, Ali, because this is where we start usually in a diagnostic piece of, hey, let's just kind of get some awareness of our personal brands. And the first question we tell them to do is go and look at times where things have gone well, and go look at times when things did not go well, and to see if you can notice some patterns about what was going on in those situations. Was there something in the environment? Was there something in the people? Was there something in the context? Was there something in the ask? It could be a bunch of different things that can trigger leaders that kind of just niggle at them from those insecurity standpoints. And so we really try to get them to identify that for themselves, because there's one thing about, as we talked about, characteristics with a capital C, of understanding like who you are at your core. But then the other pieces are your appearance, or the way that you show up both visually and verbally, and then your behaviors and actions. And your appearance and behaviors and actions you can't control. Characteristics are really ingrained. It's really hard to change who you are at your core. You can try, but again, it's kind of white knuckling. But you can then adjust the way that you show up in order to accommodate the environment that's going on. And that's what we really start honing in on. So if you are a direct person, which me and April are both extremely direct, again, Forthright People, we don't tell you not to be direct. We don't tell you to soften. And if you're direct, you need to be like not direct. I don't even know what the opposite of not direct is, but just call it softer. Okay. We just say in this situation.
What is the opposite?
What is the opposite of direct? Passive? I don't know. Oh, passive? I don't know.
Passive? Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to ponder that one a little bit as we use this example going forward. But like what we encourage them to say and see for themselves is, listen, in this situation, if your directness was at play, was it at play at the right level for what that situation needed in order for you to meet your objective in that situation? Because we talked about intentionality before. We can have the best intentions, but really other people's perceptions are their reality.
That's right.
So it is our responsibility to make sure that whatever we intend for, whatever message, whatever objective, whatever impact, it is our responsibility that the other person hears and receives that. And that's where a lot of the struggle comes from, is because we're like, I'm sorry, I'm just a direct person. I just said it. What if they can't receive it? They can't hear it. That's their problem. No, it's your problem. And in that meeting, if you did not achieve your goal, that is your problem. That person's went on with their own little perception about how you are. And I'll tell you what, they're starting now to build a story about your personal brand that is going to be very, very hard for you to undo if you don't go back and fix that mess, right? So that's where we really like hone in on to make sure that people are becoming more aware, more intentional, and then and really then figuring out, how do you want to show up in these environments that's going to be the most conducive for you to achieve your big thing.
It's funny, even that example of being direct that you gave. People double down and go, "I'm being authentic. I'm being real myself. I'm being direct, and that's what I'm doing."
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
And that's it, right? And this is what you want me to do, right? You want me myself. That's what I'm being. And now you're saying I can't be myself. We're not saying you can't be yourself, but it's more than just being direct. There's delivery. There's because you also have to think about the impact. Because at the end of the day, we all are humans. We all react. We all feel. We all of it. We're all this. It's a function of being a human. And so, if my directness means I'm going to negatively impact you, am I being an effective leader?
1,000%. Exactly right. Yep.
And so for that individual, they need to really look at this thing that they call being direct. And I don't even think direct is the right word. I think it's rude. I'm telling
That's one side of the spectrum for sure. For sure.
Yeah. It's just like, or being transparent. There's different words that they use to mask the behavior, but the behavior, it's just not appropriate. I don't think you talking down to people or how it appears. I don't think those things are acceptable for the sake of being direct, and call it direct. It's just, what's that expression? Put lipstick on a pig. That's what you're doing, right? It's not. So, and it seems to me that, and I know we sort of talked about the copying thing. I want to sort of dive deeper into why leaders do that as opposed to trusting themselves. Or why do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to the point we were making before of like, you're placed in these positions and you have no experience or tools. And then those well-meaning mentors, managers, et cetera, that Anne mentioned, you ask for advice and they also come from a place where they didn't have the tools or the, training or the experience. So that's where you get that advice of go mirror so-and-so or go act like so-and-so. And it's not ill-intentioned. It's just, before this book, we believe there's not been the right advice, right? And so that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, okay, well, like Anne said, something's not working for me.
Yeah.
I want to fix it. I'm a high achiever. I'm used to doing really well. And I hate sitting here and not knowing what to do. What can I do? That person seems to have it together. I'm going to go pretend I'm like them, right? That's how that happens. Instead of taking time to sit with yourself and think and reflect, it just isn't something that I think is inherently what we decide to do, nor are we encouraged to do that in those instances.
Yeah. I want to just go back because what I don't want to give the impression is that we can't learn from others, right? So as much as I'm saying, oh, you stay in your own path, like I think you so you can. So let's in an example you gave it, bro. So you look over there and leader Tom or whatever is doing this thing really, really well, like. Maybe have a conversation and ask them, hey, why do you do that? Or why is that effective? Or how do you land on it? Something. And if the feedback comes back being like, well, yeah, well, this is what I saw. I need to do this. I need to make adjustments. So I looked at what was happening in the dynamics of our workforce or team. And this is why I do this the way I do. Well, that's the signal to me that maybe that's the approach I take, as opposed to doing exactly what he does, right? And so I don't. Again, if I'm really hoping that's not the message coming across. Don't look at other people, because we can learn from others, but we don't have to copy what they're doing. If that makes sense.
I mean, it's a really, really important distinction. I'm really glad you brought this up because, yes, I want to make sure that people aren't hearing it like that either. So what you described is a way that we can learn through our behaviors and actions, right? It's in the how, right? So if you see, Doug does a really good at presentations. He seems very confident when he goes up and he presents in front of people, and he's able to really speak well. And, Sally is able to speak up in meetings and be able to really exemplify her point of view, and she doesn't have these issues like I do. Yes, you can go and get some thoughts about, like, hey, how do you do that? Like, what is your preparation process, or how do you, how does it impact you? And get some data for sure. But if you think, what happens tends to happen in that, and somebody be saying, well, giving you the advice, well, you just need to speak up more. You just need to speak up more. And I use this example in the book. If you're just going to go into the meeting, if you tend to be more of a passive person, or you tend to be more of an introverted person, and somebody just tells you to speak up more, oh my God, like the anxiety hits. What am I going to say? Are they going to like what I say? How am I going to, so you just start to like feel like it just clenches up. And then you say something in a meeting and it's the stupidest thing you could have ever said, right? And so then you're like, oh, now I have to deal with the shame of saying something stupid. So you can go learn, get the data. It's like, well, how do I, in the way that I am, show up more like Sally? Then you start to think about, okay, well, I get really nervous in front of this group of people. Okay, I must need to prepare. I need to prepare a little bit better. I need to know what the agenda is ahead of time. I need to have some talking points. If I want to show up like Sally, that's what I need to go do. So I think it's a really important distinction, Ali, because you can learn from others. You can be taught by others. But the thing that we want to avoid is that you can't be something that you're not.
Correct.
If Sally is just naturally, like, doesn't have any fear and just is able to put the thoughts together on the fly and is more like action oriented that way, you're not all of a sudden going to become like that. It's just not good. It's not part of you. So you need to have different strategies, the tools that April was talking about, in order to be effective in those situations. So that's what I think. That was a really important question you asked.
One of the strategies, one of the tools that I'll share. Once upon a time, I used to have a real serious fear of speaking, and it wasn't actually being afraid to stand up in front of people and like, oh, I know what to say. It wasn't that. I was very comfortable with that. What I was afraid about, and I literally stopped speaking, is I had this belief or thought in my head, and it would absolutely terrify me. The idea of me speaking in front of people and they don't understand what I'm saying. Like the idea of, and when you talk, and like, so you guys are nodding your head and you're in agreement, like, yeah, I live for that. But when that doesn't always come. And so when I wasn't getting, I would like tense up, and I just stopped like speaking. I'm like, yeah, you ever thought of, no, I never thought of this. And I just let it go because I didn't want to experience that. And, it wasn't until someone like, and I don't know if it was probably, maybe it was intentional. I don't know. Now I think about it, maybe it was intentional, where this person had said to me, well, obviously, you know about this. What are your thoughts? So they pulled me in, right? And I was like, I gotta say something, right? I gotta speak. And I literally, and so what I started to develop, because it happened more than once. I'm like, I keep getting drawn to this. Okay, I gotta get, and I know it was a problem. I was very clear that was an issue. So what I started to do is I would add, every time I would say something, I'd follow up with it. Does that make sense? And like, oh yeah, okay. And I keep going. And like, oh yeah, and da da da. You follow what I'm going with this? And I get that, and that's what built my confidence. It's funny now. I still think I still every so often I hear myself going, "Does that make sense?" Even though I know it makes sense, but just force a habit, right? But the idea, though, it's the idea of that was my strategy, and that's what I use. So on the vein of strategies, I wonder, are there any other types of things that you share with leaders or middle managers or individuals to help them kind of get over those types of issues?
Yeah, I mean, Anne mentioned before that we kind of assign that pretty tactical, granular assignment in the beginning of the way I say it is, all right, for 2 weeks, every other day, end of day, 3 things that went well, 3 things that didn't go so well. Place where I showed up like I wanted to, place I didn't. Right. And so we start on purpose at that level. So, like Anne said, people can identify for themselves, like you just said, what's going well, what's not going so well. Right. And because each of our personal brands is different, The then next assignment kind of depends on the person, right? So what we're trying to help them do is identify tools that are comfortable for them to then build that level of confidence, like you said, and expertise and an understanding of this is what I'm going to have to do in these types of situations until it becomes more natural to me. So for example, this morning with a client, not a fan of networking. Feel like I'm trying to sell something, feel like a snake oil salesman, really not going to do that. I said, hear you. That is a very hard thing for a lot of people to do, especially if you're really out of practice. So my advice was, what is a situation where you meet someone new and you're comfortable? Right. And we kind of rolled through that. Well, I love meeting new people, right? Like I love when someone introduces me to, okay, step one, ask someone that you're close to introduce you to someone new, right? Okay. Warm welcome, right?
Yeah.
Okay. People love to talk about themselves. You are not there to say, hey, I do this and I would like you to buy it from me. Say, be honest. I'm trying to rebuild my network, to get to know new people, to figure out what might be next for me, right? Like my example with Anne.
Sure.
Okay, go and ask that person to talk about themselves. Are you good at asking questions of people interacting? Oh, well, I can do that. Okay, so for the next month, I want you to do that once a week. That was how we catered that recommendation, right? So that this person says, okay, this is an outage, not something I know how to do well. In my head, it was that I had to go and reach out, cold call LinkedIn people to say, like, sit down with me and then go with my pitch deck, right? And I'm like, whoa, you did that in your head. That's not what I'm saying. Let's come up with an authentic way to your personal brand. And this person is a very empathetic leader and really cares about people and genuinely likes people. So that path, now he's happy and confident to do it versus like, I'm not doing that. That's terrible, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I really like was the clarity that you brought to and well, I mean, he came to his own clarity, but you sort of coached that along in him, and why that's so tremendous is it actually can translate into sort of alignment within like a leader's team, right? Like it's so
Yep.
important, right? And so, I think that's so another key point. Um, and as much as we're talking about, the courage and the audacity to do these things, right? It's still tough when especially when we start talking about like owning our own identity, right? Because and I will tell you, like even with the example of the speaking, like me afraid to speak, it was like you're questioning if you're enough, right? And
Yes.
and I think that's what holds people back. Is that kind of where you see people hesitate the most? Is that self-doubt and questioning?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, and especially when you hit that struggle, when you hit that wall, because a lot of times this is the first time they've actually hit a wall,
Right.
right? And so they do start having the feelings of I'm not enough, and that's why it's so important to go inside. Because if you go outside, it's just going that comparison, right? Aspect of it, it's just going to exacerbate the whole issue. So the core belief here, when building your personal brand, when we say building it from the inside out, is that you are enough. Everything you need to be successful is already in you. We're going to refine a few things. We're going to become aware of a few things. We're going to figure out how our appearance and behaviors and actions need to shift. But really at its core, and this is a very, really big belief that me and April have, and is the foundation of personal branding, is that your characteristics are neither good nor bad. So you can spend forever trying to decide, oh, this is a strength and this is a weakness and this is an opportunity area. And you tend to focus more on your opportunity areas more than you do like what actually is working well for you. In this case, it's really about understanding what is at play, what is our recipe that makes up our competitive advantage, and figuring out how I'm going to use those internal tools in order to get what I want out of life, in order to reach my big thing. Right? Because that's the fundamental goal here, is to achieve these things we want to achieve. But we're only going to achieve them by being who we are, and that's the only way we're going to be able to systemically be able to be successful when we reach that level. Because as you mentioned, a lot of times we'll get to that level, and even if we've grounded out and we've fooled everybody, what's the first thing that happens when we get there? We have imposter syndrome. How did we get here? Are we supposed to be here? If you built your personal brand from the inside out and you started from that place, when you get there, you're like, yeah, of course I deserve to be here. Because you know why? I built this. I am the one who motivated this. I'm the one who managed my own career in order to get here, right? And not that we don't have doubts about, oh, I don't know how to go do that thing. But the next thing you say is, well, I'm going to learn, right? And so it becomes a different skill set, becomes a different mindset. And that's what's so important, is when you can trust yourself and believe in your ability to be able to figure it out because your personal brand is strong. God, the sky is the limit, right?
Mhm. I love that. I love that. So for someone who's listening right now and they feel out of alignment, right? And they know it. And when we're out of alignment, we know exactly what it feels like, right? We're not,
Mhm.
it's not like, oh, what's it? We know exactly what it is. What's the, I guess, first honest step they can take, that they need to take, you'd say?
So we are really big on saying, just get started. And I use the reference point of myself, high performing overachiever. I like to think I'm recovering, but it still comes up and rears its ugly head, right? So we have the book and we have an accompanying workbook on our website.
Okay.
The old April, before I was aware of and using my personal brand, would download that, buy the book, race through the whole thing, be done in a day, right? First of all, that's really daunting. Second of all, that is really not going to get you anywhere, right?
Right.
So the reason we say just get started, and the reason we assign that homework that I said before, is to just start to sit and spend some time with yourself and use some of these tools that we've outlined to just dip your toe in the water and start. Right? So do that observation, buy the book and download the workbook, and then do that for a couple of weeks. And then read the first chapter and spend some time thinking about it, right? It's meant to be a journey. It's not meant to be something like my joke of you do it in one day and then I'm done, right? It's a
Right.
lifelong practice. Because we are human, like you said before, we are changing and evolving all the time. Our big things, we achieve one, we want to achieve the next thing, right? We want to rise in our career. We want to go from middle manager to senior leadership, whatever those things are.
Yes.
So the important thing is to just start. If you don't start, you'll never do anything. But we noticed with people that when we start this process, and this is a lot of what we coach, right? So we start to spoon feed a little bit of it, and then it slowly builds, and then the next piece doesn't feel so hard.
Gotcha.
Yes, you have to do the introspection and hard work, but it's not meant to be something that you don't look forward to doing for yourself.
Mhm. And I very much appreciate you make a point of saying there will be hard work, because it's not
Yeah.
an easy journey. It's not
No.
a walk in the park. There'll be some honest, there's going to be some honest revelations where you
Yes.
exercise some grace about who you are and not beat yourself up because you myself,
Mhm.
like, oh, when I was a leader, I got to let that go. Like, I messed up
Mhm.
and I got to move on. It's what I do next, what matters most than what happened before. And so,
Yes.
I think that's real key. Last thing I want to ask you guys, and when from a perspective of a leader, when someone who's, you know, truly leading from a place of alignment, what kind of impact does that leave behind?
It's such a good question. It's such a good question. I mean, we talked about at the very beginning, and I talked about at the very beginning, the power trifecta, right?
Mhm.
When a leader is in alignment, everything else seems to be so much easier to get in alignment to. Your team, your business, because you are coming from a place of confidence. You're coming from a place of clarity. You're coming from a place of being able then to be consistent with your team. Consistency is the precursor to being able to build trust. If you're a moving target, you can't build trust with your team, and your team will never be highly functioning. So when you're in alignment, when you're showing up consistently, when you can set those objectives, those values, and the team structure and the team culture, and your team then has something grounded in order to be able to work from. And in addition, when they start understanding their personal brands, you can understand then how to bring all of this talent together in order to maximize it, right? So it just kind of has a trickle down effect. And then that team can then be highly effective in order to deliver the business objectives. So it trickles down into a way that just delivers so much incremental impact. You'll feel like you're not working as hard. You'll feel like things are just going into flow. You'll feel like things are, you'll have this relationship with your team that you're like, oh, we really get each other. We can almost like complete each other's sentences. We can almost predict how each other is going to behave. I mean, it's a totally different dynamic, and it's kind of like the epitome of highly functioning.
Love it. I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Guys, this has been great. I had a lot of fun. I gotta tell you, I really appreciate the insights. Before we go, there's something like we like to do here called a fearless fast round. Some rapid fire questions. Let's throw some thoughts on it. Look at the competitiveness in Anne. She just jumped in there. Let's go, right? That's awesome.
I love rapid fire.
I guess you're up for it. Yeah, want to do it?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Although I tend to not be super concise, but I am working on it, oddly. This is part of my homework. So
All right. Well,
You
we'll start off with kind of like one or the other. That way it can help you work. We'll work up to it, right? Here we go. Work up to it. Clarity or confidence?
Confidence.
Lead fast or lead right?
lead right.
Trust your gut or trust the data?
Gut.
Speak up early or wait until you're sure?
Speak up early.
A leadership mistake that taught you the most?
Oh my gosh. I was just waiting for the either or. Now you have to I have to think. Leadership mistake that taught me the most. I think it was trying to control the situation and thinking that I could actually then control the outcome.
Well, April, you have one? I'm curious. You look like you had.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So mine was two great mentors and still friends today, 20 some years later. As a hard charger, and at that point a doer, I was turning around and there was nobody behind me. And they said, listen, if you want to get to that next level, the level we've been talking about today, you better learn to slow down and bring people along with you.
That's a good one. Is there one belief about leadership that you had to unlearn?
It's your turn, April. I went
Oh,
first.
sorry, I'm supposed to go first. Sorry. So for me, I had some unfortunate early experiences that taught me to be highly self-sufficient and believe that I could do everything better than anyone else. And back to that point about bringing people along, I had to undo that to learn that we got a lot more done and a lot bigger things done if I was able to work with others than try to tackle it all myself.
Okay.
And now I've had time to think, so I have mine. And actually, it's one that I'm going through right now. Still, I mean, I've been out of P&G now for, going on 8 years, and it's just one that I just recently realized. And it is the fact that being able to set boundaries or being able to state if I'm upset, disappointed, or have a contrarian point of view that creates conflict in others. That's something that I've had to unlearn, because in P&G, you don't create conflict, because if you create conflict, there's a retaliation process that comes back to you. Now I'm learning that there is a healthy level of conflict setting boundaries that I have to do in order to be able to be the best leader that I can be.
Makes sense. When we talk about personal brand, discovered or defined?
Discover.
The biggest mistake leaders make with their teams?
They put themselves first.
Okay. One word that describes aligned leadership?
Fast progress. That's 2 words, but
We'll conjoin them.
yeah.
And then lastly, and I'd love to hear from both of you on this. Define audacity in one sentence.
Audacity is having the courage to do something big and not play small.
And I would say something similar. Audacity is the ability to turn off that voice in your head that's telling you to play small and go for it, even when there's naysayers around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. That is definitely a big one. Guys, this has been awesome. For listeners that want to connect you directly, get a copy of your book or check out your 500 plus episode podcast, where can we send them?
Yeah, so you can get everything off of our website if you want to. You can go to forthright-people.com. There's a link in order to buy the book, or you can go directly to Amazon in order to buy the book. And then the workbook, as April says, is downloadable on the website. And then our podcast is called Strategic Counsel. You can go to our resources page. You can hear all of those episodes if you want to search for them, or you can get it on your player of choice.
So I'm so curious, when you first decided to launch the podcast, what was that like? Because I'm assuming it was the first time, it was new for you, and anytime you try something new, there's that feeling of but I'll do it anyways.
Well, it was interesting for us. So Anne has more of the PR and comms background. So she had been on a few podcasts, which then she encouraged me to do that. And we were hosted together on one, and actually were presented with an opportunity to be a quote unquote channel, like think Netflix, right? A whole collection of different podcasts. And we ended up declining because we didn't feel like that company's brand aligned with our personal brands.
Yeah, okay.
But that, I think, was our jumping off point. But to your point, we did have to, there's a lot of things we did then that we don't do now. Like we hired a full production company. Now we record and our producer's remote, right? We practiced every episode before we recorded it. We don't have any time for that now. So thank goodness we've gotten over that, right? And there were things that I think along the way we learned about ourselves where if you over practice, right, you sound robotic, like all these little nuanced things that we had to learn. But if I rewind, I think the toughest thing for me was I never want to misstep in my statement. I love to sound polished. If you're going to talk for 80, 90 minutes, which some of our episodes were at the beginning, that's not possible. So get over it.
No, I can concur and agree and relate. I mentioned my first podcast was in 2008. I started with a buddy of mine, and we wrote full scripts. Full
scripts.
We did too.
Oh yeah.
And we read them word for word for word for word. And then it didn't last very long because it's a lot of work. But that's how we started off. And so anyhow. Listen, like I said, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed the time with you guys, and really love the mission, love the work, and how you're going about doing things. And I just really appreciate you. And thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living podcast.
Thank
you, Audrey.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes to both Anne and April for being here. There was a line from the chat from Anne that really stayed with me. She said, "You are enough. Everything you need to be successful is already in you." And I so love that. Not because it means there's nothing left for us to learn or improve. Actually, I think it means just the opposite. Anne and April made this really important distinction between changing who we are and changing how you show up. Those aren't the same thing. You can be direct and still be about your delivery. Think about your delivery, right? You can be confident and still listen. You can be ambitious and still slow down long enough to bring people with you. That's growth. One of the things I appreciate about this conversation is that they didn't pretend leadership becomes easier simply because you've been successful. Sometimes success is exactly what makes the next transition so difficult. You keep reaching for the tools that worked before, even when the job that's in front of you requires something different. And if you want to learn more about Anne and April's work, I'd encourage you to visit Forthright People. You'll find about their book, The Power of Your Personal Brand. They've got a downloadable workbook, a podcast, as well as their podcast called Strategic Counsel. But bearing all that in mind, it really got me thinking something beyond our personal brand. And I think it flows nicely into today's Audacious Insight. It's time for an Audacious Insight where we take a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. Back in 2012, before anybody was talking about Linsanity, Jeremy Lin was basically fighting to stay in the NBA. He'd gone undrafted out of Harvard. He'd already bounced around. And by the time he got to the Knicks, he wasn't the guy everybody was building a team around. Then February 4th happened. The Knicks were struggling. Lin got an opportunity against the New Jersey Nets, and he scored 25 points. A few nights later, he's at Madison Square Garden against Kobe Bryant, and he drops 38. Suddenly, everybody knows who Jeremy Lin is. Linsanity. But here's what I find really interesting about that story. Jeremy Lin didn't suddenly become talented that week. The ability had already been there. What changed was that he finally found himself in a situation where he could use it. And I think there's something in that for all of us. Sometimes when things aren't working, our first instinct is look around and think, maybe I need to become more of that, like that person. Maybe I need that personality, their confidence, their leadership skills, their way of communicating. Or maybe the better question is, what do I already have that I'm not fully using? Because growth isn't always about adding something new. Sometimes it's recognizing something that's been there the whole time, then having the courage and self-awareness to put it in the game. Jeremy Lin didn't need to become somebody else. He needed the opportunity to become more Jeremy Lin. And maybe that's what Anne and April's message ultimately reminds us. There's a difference between changing who you are and learning how to bring more of you forward. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you found value in today's message or enjoy the conversation, I'd encourage you to like, follow, subscribe, and share the podcast because, of course, that's how we get these conversations, how we grow this platform. And again, if there's someone out there that you think would benefit from this message, send it directly to them and let them know that you were thinking about them. Again, thank you so much for joining us on the platform. And as always, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay